we was mobile before mobile was cool. Everybody thinks it's a big deal nowadays, but that's all we ever knew. Cover as much ground as you can, scout with an open mind, and hunt the best stuff you find to hunt.
When did you start bow hunting? And what was it like bow hunting back again? I think you started. Well, actually, I don't know exact date, but what was it like when you first got started bow hunting?
I was ignorant. I didn't know anything. They didn't have any thing to educate yourself with back then. It was 1968, and I just knew I loved to be in the woods. I was always a small game hunter. Come up, they didn't have any deer in the area around where I was at. You just had to drive up to northeast corner of Louisiana or go into Mississippi or somewhere like that. And I was raised since I was 7 years old hunting squirrels, and I thought that was the thing to do until I made my first bow hunt. And I wasn't really prepared for that first bow hunt, but I did shoot a deer that I didn't recover. And that one shot at that one time thrilled me so much that I didn't care if I ever killed another squirrel. I made a decision to learn as much as I could about putting deer inside shooting range with a bow, and I devoted myself to it for 4 years. It was like an apprenticeship program. It took me 4 years to figure a lot of stuff out, but it wasn't the end of my education. I continued to educate myself, and still at 80 years old, I'm still trying to educate myself.
Just a student of the game.
Student, yes, sir.
Absolutely. Now, also, one thing been really interested in asking you this: when you first started deer hunting, did you have any kind of mentor or anybody you looked to for advice, or someone that was already successful as a deer hunter or specifically a bow hunter back then?
Not really. It was. I guess you say I was kind of a pioneer. They had a couple of guys I knew that was bow hunting, but they wasn't hunting that much, and it was just. When, I was told when I first started bow hunting, when you gun hunt, you count your kills. When you bow hunt, you count your shots. And there was a lot of truth in that. It took a while to learn how, but after 4 years, I figured it out. But you got to think, Bow Hunter magazine, they wasn't available when I first started. Nothing on archery. You had Field and Stream and Sports and Field magazines, and they maybe once a year, each one would have some kind of bow hunting article or something like that, and that was all you had. It wasn't no YouTube, it wasn't no Facebook, it wasn't no websites or nothing. No computer. You just had a compass for your navigation. That was it. No maps, no cell phones. I mean, it was totally primitive. I'd be gone for 4 days. My wife wouldn't know if I was going to come home or not. She'd know I was still alive or not. If something happened, she didn't know where I was at or where to find me or anything. It was an adventure really back in those days.
That's something. It's hard to believe now, especially like our generation, kind of growing up, where that we were definitely, I guess, at an age that when a lot of this technology started coming in, like we were very easy to start using it. Some of the newer technologies, specifically cell phones, digital mapping, always knowing where you're at, not necessarily having to carry a compass with you or anything. Back then, this is something I've always been curious to ask guys like yourself who were hunting well before any of that, specifically mapping technology was available other than paper maps. How did you go about hunting and finding a spot and then remembering how to get back there and where that spot was located at?
Well, my grandfather gave me a compass for my 14th birthday, and he told me, don't go in the woods without it, learn to use it, and believe in it. And I took his word for it, and I did that. So my main navigation was with a compass. Maps, there were no maps. I'd go and walk a place out and then draw my own map of different prominent landmarks, like any kind of roads or creeks or rivers or highlines, pastures, just whatever. I would draw that map up myself, and then from there I would figure out different ways to go in to find the places that I designated as a high percentage hunt.
Oh, that's fascinating. So, also, I'm just interested in asking you this as well. What was it like when you were hunting back then? Would you ever go into spots in the dark, as in trying to get into an area in the dark where you couldn't see very well, or were you using some kind of flashlight back then? How did you navigate the woods, especially in like low light conditions?
Well, I just use a map. A flashlight. First, I started off with one of those handheld lanterns and everything where you push the button and all that. Well, that left a lot to be desired. I didn't want to fool with that anymore. And then gradually worked up. And my buddy Lloyd Foreman that I hunted with a lot, he's my number one hunting buddy. Well, he found out about these coon hunter lights, and the battery was as heavy as my stand was, just about. It was just a heavy system. But we would hunt for 4 days at a time, and that battery would last 4 days. We was getting up an hour and a half, 2 hours before daylight, and walking an hour in the dark, and then hunting all day. And then when you come out, if you killed a deer, you had to find it, and you had to take pictures, and later on videos in '91 videos, and you had to field quart it and you pack it back out. Well, that was a lot of battery time, and those big heavy batteries would actually last a 4-day hunt. Come home and recharge and go. But man, it was heavy. And then when they come out with these LED lights, oh man, I thought I died and gone to heaven. The lights you can buy now, and a lot of people are scared of a white light. They think it's better to have a red one or a blue one or something like that. I never had. I want my light as bright as I can get. I want to be able to see briars and stuff, not so it won't stick me in the eye when I'm walking, or limbs or whatever. I want to be able to see everything, and I don't find where it scares deer at all. In fact, I think you're better off walking with a light than you are without one. The deer can see you better walking in the dark without a light. They see that light, they don't concentrate on you, they concentrate on that beam of light.
Mm-hmm. Warren, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your upbringing. We were looking at your logbook earlier, and if people don't know this about you, you've kept logs of pretty much all of your hunts since '68, and it's pretty cool to watch you flip through there and see all that. Killed your first deer in '68, and we were talking about how in the past, in the 1960s, 1970s, and earlier, there wasn't a lot of deer in the Southeast, especially where we were at in Alabama. And I think you said it was similar down here, and you grew up small game hunting. What was just the deer hunting culture like when you were really young? Did anybody deer hunt at all? I mean, what was it like back then?
I didn't know any deer hunters. I was 24 years old before I killed my first deer, and it just they didn't have them. It wasn't nowhere. I had to go up way northeast corner of Louisiana maybe, or into Mississippi, but it just wasn't any deer. But when I did find deer and start hunting, I was just a way of life for me. I centered all my time and activities, planned all my events around bow season.
Mm-hmm. Now, the small game hunters, everybody that you grew up around, when the deer started coming back, what was it like when that deer hunting culture, I guess, started to come back? Like, people started to get into it. Did you know a lot of guys that were getting into bow hunting, or were you kind of a lone wolf?
Well, I knew a few guys, several, maybe a dozen that was serious bow hunting and everything, but they just didn't have many people bow hunting until in the 90s and stuff like that. I mean, even through the 80s and all that, you'd have a few people. Most people just waited for the gun season, But I know some really good bow hunters, though. I know several that's really good. And probably 5 of us, I'd be scared to tell you how many of the 5 of us have killed during our lifetime of hunting and everything. It shocked people, it really would. But they were really good. They knew how to hunt. They all basically used the same style, mobile approach. Like I say, we was mobile before mobile was cool. Everybody thinks it's a big deal nowadays, but that's all we ever knew. Cover as much ground as you can, scout with an open mind, and hunt the best stuff you find to hunt.
And on that topic of being mobile, and again, y'all were doing it way back then, what was the hunting style that you approached for whitetail hunting back then, as in being mobile? Was it some kind of early climbers? Was it lock-ons? Like, what was even available back then technology-wise for, like, stands, and what did you actually use?
Well, I started off with a ladder stand. That's my first thing, made out of EMT tubing. I was an electrician, so I could bend tubing. And I had a ladder stand, which left a lot to be desired. And then I knew a guy that I like to call his name Donnie Davis. He was a real pioneer in bow hunting in Louisiana. I could tell a lot of good stories about him, his abilities and how good he was and everything. He was a pipe fitter welder by trade, and he designed probably the first lock-on that's ever been made. And I did my version of it after I hunted with his and saw it. I made my own version, but it was a solid model. You couldn't fold it. It was bulky, hard to pack and everything. So after we made several of those, we figured out a way to fold it, make it fold, and then it was still bulky, and then we redesigned it and made it. I ought to have it. I should have brought it in here and showed you, but we got it down to 10 pounds, and we couldn't get any lighter than 10 pounds. And 10 pounds sounds light, but we was hunting an hour and a half, maybe hour and 45 minutes from the vehicle, and time you go in that far, we hunted. Sometimes, all day hunt, people think it's sitting and staying all day. We'd make an all day hunt, maybe 4 different clients. We'd hunt 2 places in the morning, take a break at dinner, and hunt 2 places in the evening. That's like hunting all day, but you get a different scenery and it breaks it up and give you a chance to just still just sitting there staring at one place all day long. We did that. Now I got back. I forgot my channel of thoughts. I got sidetracked, but help me out on that.
No, just like again, so y'all started building your own stands.
Yeah.
And again, lightest you could get was 10 pounds. So what happened after that?
Well, Lock On Limit and Lock On Windwalker came out, and I was blown away how light it was. The Windwalker was 5.5 pounds, and the Limit was 6.5, and it's just unbelievable. They're small. I told y'all a while ago, I bought the Windwalker first, and Lloyd, he got the Limit, and I got the Windwalker, and I was 6'3", and I had too tall for the frame to use it, so we swapped. I took his Limit, and he took my Windwalker, and we was both happy.
And see, what's funny is, for people that don't know about those stands, I bought a Limit probably 5-6 years ago now. I think it was after either I had heard you talk about one, or I had some other guys that grew up in that, I guess, time frame of when those stands really were coming out. And the Limit is a small stand, and I bought a Windwalker as well. And the Windwalker, and I'm only 5'9", it is a little tiny platform and a little tiny seat, but it folds up and it's super, super lightweight. That's what I was going to say is, like, you're a tall guy.
Yeah.
I know Lloyd's a real tall guy as well.
He's about 5'10".
Oh, okay. Well, it's taller than me, so
Yeah.
that's tall to me. But again, to be able to like hunt out those little stands is just amazing. And that's one thing I always go back to, thinking about some old school guys like you and Lloyd, is how small y'all liked your stands. And was that more so for a maneuverability or a lightweight standpoint, or you just never felt like you needed a much bigger platform when bigger stands came to the market?
It was all about weight. But, you can adjust to anything, but the weight is so important. Like I say, those long distance pack outs, we're not only packing the deer quartered up, but we got our stand and our spurs and everything we walked in with. We don't leave nothing in the woods. We don't. Every time my stand is usually in one of several places, either in my truck, on my back, or in a tree with me sitting on it. When I climb up, it goes up with me. When I climb down, it comes down with me. I don't want to leave a stand in a tree and then come back to it and might have missed a chance of hunting somewhere else. As far as having a bunch of stands and leaving them here, there, and there, I don't want to keep up with all that. I mean, all the person needs one good stand that he's got confidence in and it works for him.